Now, for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, we have Dr. Constance Ikwoku. Good morning, Dr. Constance.
Good morning, Yolanda.
We are ready for the review today.
Good morning, Gbenga. How are you?
I'm good. Always a delight to be in between two most insightful anchors.
Here we go again.
We know you are delighted. We know.
He said icons. Today we're icons. Wow.
All right, good to see everyone.
Likewise.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at those stories that are shaping the agenda for you today. Let's kick off with this day newspaper. Overall front page trend today include Dangote's fuel price cut, symbolizing both consumer relief and a power struggle over who controls Nigeria's energy sector. The market, the regulator, or the refinery, who is it going to be? The battle line is drawn. We also have security issues and social developments, economic indicators, budget, inflation, air travel, and policy responses. This day writes about further plans by the president on security, quoting him as saying that he is deploying all military assets to keep the country safe. During a book launch of a biography on former President Muhammadu Buhari, President Tinubu shared his thoughts that the late president taught Nigerians that being in office is about trust and not bonanza. On the window, the government is promising to move away from heavy borrowing to deploying mass savings as a sustainable way of tackling rising debt burden. We'll see how that works. The Punch leads with Dangote battle with importers over pricing, showing how price cut is redrawing Nigeria's downstream economics. Dangote had cut petrol price recently, a move that positioned his refinery as a price setter. But that has intensified pressure on fuel importers, testing the credibility of Nigeria's deregulated downstream market. In Vanguard newspaper, inflation is at a 4-month high following year-end festivities. Although, in other titles, it says that Nigeria's inflation slows to 14.45%, specifically in November, as price of staple foods ease. Furthermore, in Vanguard, former Governor Atahiru Bafarawa carpets Turuji Bello over allegations of a former governor being a terrorist sponsor, while Kwara government officials say interagency rivalry is to be blamed for bandit allegations. Daily Independent writes that the Supreme Court has ruled that president can declare state of emergency as well as suspend elected officials. Airlines are facing backlash with ridiculous prices and they are justifying it. Malami asks EFCC chairman to step aside from probe as he alleges bias. New Telegraph this morning quotes the president as saying that he is mobilizing military assets to protect us, and the Senate is not too happy with multiple budgets and unclear plans for the 2026 budget, and it has made that known to the executive. The PDP, Sule Lamido, says his group will align with another party if reconciliation fails. And the Daily Times interrogates the 30 trillion naira shortfall in 2025 revenue, with the federal government planning to roll over 70% of capital component into the 2026 budget. It's really become messy, and that explains why the Senate is rejecting multiple legislation. Leadership reports that police will resume tinted glass permit enforcement from January 2nd. Now let's look at the international papers. The Daily Telegraph reports on U.S. President Donald Trump suing the BBC over alleged defamation related to its Panorama program. The Financial Times leads with plans by the UK's Financial Conduct Authority to relax mortgage affordability rules. This is aimed at widening home loan access for buyers. It also tells us that Australia is tightening gun laws after the Bondi Beach attack. Our newspaper emphasizes a front-page piece from Britain's new intelligence chief, warning that power is shifting from elected governments to big tech companies. Very scary. Daily Express flags political tension over refusal by the Prime Minister to drop planned inheritance tax affecting farmers. The dramatic headline says farmers will take their own lives to avoid this tax. The Daily Mirror, the Daily Star, and Metro.co.uk highlight a high-profile Liverpool parade incident where a man, ex-Marine Paul Doyle, drove into crowds celebrating, injuring many people. The Times newspaper and the Independent report on what is described as self-indulgent doctor strike, while in The Guardian, the Bondi Beach grief takes center stage. Now let's break down what these stories mean for everyday people. Let's begin return to this day newspaper. The President on Security says he will marshal military assets and pledge to secure lives and property. He reaffirmed his commitment to welfare, professionalism, and the operational effectiveness of the Nigerian army. He also spoke about modernization of the armed forces, procurement of weapons, etc. Well, that's what he's expected to do. So what's the big news in this?
I think I will start with the first question from the book launch yesterday.
I'm
making an inference. The question is poignant. Who bugged the late president's office? So I think the top office is not even spared from this security threat we are talking about. And now when the vice president who represented the president at that event said that they are gathering, mobilizing military assets, that shows a lot of overemphasis on kinetic approach. But we know that over 15 million children out of the 22 million out-of-school children is a potential breeding ground for terrorism, because all you need to do is to indoctrinate them. So I think that the president, the federal government should focus more on this, on also non-kinetic approach to address this. Apart from just mobilizing the military assets in addressing insecurity, it should also consider the non-kinetic approach to focus on providing schools for these children. Otherwise, it will be a counter-productive approach in addressing insecurity threats in the country.
I think with what the country has been going through lately, there's no such thing as too much reassurance. Everything has been very unsteady with high numbers of insecurity, terrorism, banditry, you name it. We know what we've been facing. We know the headlines that we've been discussing for the past couple of weeks that are now running into months. So I don't think that there's enough reassurance that can be given to people. And also remember that recently a nationwide emergency was declared on insecurity. So it's in the right place for the president to say this, although Dr. Constance, you seem quite skeptical about it.
I mean, this is his job.
Right.
You know, yeah, he might have to reassure and remind us, but you have to get on with the job.
Indeed.
And yes, you know, you have multiple attacks from multiple fronts, so there is no one approach to handling the problem. Buying military weapons, you need it. You know, procuring hardware, you need that. But also, there are so many social avenues, social things that you need to take on in order to arrest this particular security challenge. Military hardware alone will not do it, and the president knows that already.
Right.
The point then will be get on with the work. But let's take that second story in this day newspaper. The biography launch of late President Muhammadu Buhari. The president saying that the late president Muhammadu Buhari taught politicians that being in office is about trust, not a bonanza or a windfall. He paid glowing tributes to Buhari. He said the coalition they built in 2014 is now the fastest growing political party in Africa, talking about the APC, All Progressives Congress. Well, it's sounding now like the PDP when they said they were going to rule the country for a very long time.
Indeed.
What is actually going on with the
I was just thinking yesterday.
I said, but okay. It's also just a second. So the party is growing, but what type of growth are we talking about?
Right.
Is it the growth that is going to lead it to implode later? Is it the kind of growth that would affect the country positively? Is it the kind of political party growth with ideology and and results that we need in a country? Or is it just numbers for the sake of numbers?
Yeah, I think just as I was saying, I was thinking about this yesterday, and it occurred to me that the current administration is the most experienced opposition we've ever had in the history by virtue of their long journey to power. So if you have to play the politics of opposition, you have to play it in a different way. Otherwise, you'll be playing into their hands because they already know the game. So many of this criticism should come in a very constructive, it should come in a very constructive approach. Talking about the life and times of President Buhari, he's been a man with that taciturn posture that is very monosyllabic in his approach. He's a man of few words, maybe high in action. That is subject to debate for generations. That's why I said I said maybe high in action, but that would be subject of debate for many generations of people to come. But when you hear expose about his life and times, you are definitely eager to hear one or two things that might be missing. One of the things that really struck me was who bought. I'll keep asking. I think we shouldn't take it lie low, because if the highest office in the land that should be secured, that has the apparatus and the structure of the National Security Advisor and every other powers concentrated in our, and that office is bugged, it shows that that office also is compromised. So that's one of the things that we could draw from that he worked in a compromised office. But then we look at his style of leadership. I think he's someone that doesn't micromanage his lieutenants. He allows them that free hand. It has had a positive effect and also a negative effect. I think it's highly debatable for many generations to come.
It is a mixed bag. Those that are close to the former president, very close to him, who benefited hugely, massively from his government, will paint him in a wonderful light. And those that did not benefit from him, but were far away from him, and then have the benefit of hindsight to really look at what went on during that administration and how it affected the country, will have a different thing to say. President Bola Tinubu was an ally to the late president.
Indeed.
And the late president's family will forever be grateful to him, because it was that alliance that brought President Muhammad Buhari to power. So they were friends. You do not expect him to have a different kind of declaration about a friend, especially one that has died. However, when you look broadly on the impact of that administration on Nigeria in 8 years, 8 years is a long time and can remarkably change the fortune of a country. But when you look at what transpired in 8 years, it was terrible. The country almost came to its knees under the late President Muhammad Buhari. You talked about his style of leadership, in which he gives his lieutenants free hand. Okay, you give them free hand. However, people ran amok. And the so-called anti-corruption that was promised to Nigeria was turned upside down. There was no anti-corruption fight. There was looting, massive looting going on under that administration. It felt like the country was without a leader. It felt like the country had no particular direction. It was directionless. And that is what happens under a leader that, was sort of hands-off. Although we know that he was poorly. He was quite sick, most of the time in office. At the same time, there was that sense that he lacked the intellectual depth to be a president, and he lacked the leadership qualities to run a country as complex as Nigeria. So you have to ask the question, why did he continue to run for the presidency at least 3 times? And then when he got the presidency, he literally did nothing with it.
And that emphasizes the power of the citizenry. When you are about to vote, you should consider the choice of the candidate that we are voting for. It's a citizen's responsibility, because a man that has been disconnected from governance for over 30 years and coming back to power, what do you expect? I leave that guess to you.
Well, citizen, yes, it is a good point that the citizen has power. Actually, when you look at the School of Governance Politics, the School of SPPG, School of Politics, Policy and Governance. Yeah. One of the things they have been driving, to the younger population in Nigeria is the citizen has power. You have to step up. You have to get up and take your power. You have to get involved in politics, because a lot of Nigerians, very decent people, have removed themselves from politics completely because they believe that it is for shenanigans. But if you remove yourself from politics, then you have no right to complain.
Right,
so SPPG has been telling people, get involved in politics and get involved with character and competence and do the right thing. That's the only way you can bring about the change that you're looking for. You not be stand by the side and expect others to do the work for you. No, it's not going to happen. And it talks about the middle class and how the middle class in Nigeria have abdicated their responsibility of politics, of being involved in governance. So here we all are today.
And his communication style was very, very austere, very scarce indeed.
Okay, let's move on to another story. Daily Independent this morning affirms that the Supreme Court affirms that the president has constitutional powers to declare state of emergency and to suspend elected officials. The PDP is not happy with this at all. But the PDP was challenging the power of the president to suspend elected officials and appoint a sole administrator in a democracy. The court held that Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution empowers the president to take extraordinary measures to restore normalcy when a state of emergency has been declared. If officials are suspended, provided the suspension of officials is for a limited time. The Attorney Generals of PDP-controlled states were the plaintiffs. The PDP, of course, has responded and saying that this could have reverse democratic gains, and that it hopes the next time there's an opportunity, the Supreme Court will clarify the constitutional boundaries of emergency powers in the interest of democracy, justice, and long-term stability. Well,
Well, okay, I just wanted to throw in that, this case came about from 11 states that were PDP run. And I just found it very ironic that this judgment came after Sim Fubara had defected to the APC. And as well, one of the things that he mentioned that I found very interesting was that the PDP was not able to stand up for him. And yet now this judgment is showing that, 11 states, these are the facts that are coming out from the report, that 11 states run by PDP were actually behind him. So it's just, it's a bit of an irony that the judgment is coming out, because this defection came just a few days back, if I'm not mistaken, just last week. And so now this entire fiasco, if I can call it that, with Rivers State really did put the country on edge. So it's comforting in a way that it's now being put to rest and that there are actually answers. Absolutely, yes.
I don't think the Constitution, it's not being put to rest.
But at least there's justification to what has been done, is what I mean.
So there are more questions actually raised now with the Supreme Court judgment, because the extraordinary measures are not explicitly spelled out. So that means the president can go to any level to do whatever he can do.
Officials.
And so the worry
but there was
is
a stipulation on the time frame, no?
No, there is no stipulation.
There was no, and that's one of the ambiguity in the judgments. I think the judiciary should step up in their interpretation, because I read from even my elementary government in secondary school that the role of the judiciary is to interpret the law. So when you're creating more ambiguity by saying that the president should do that within a reasonable limit, what constitutes a reasonable limit? What constitutes, is it 10 years, is it 3 months, is it 6 months? I think they need to help in specifying what, and to make their judgment more explicit in public interest. So I also think that the opposition too should step up, because now you said something that is very instructive. 11 PDP leaders instituted this case, and now we are finding very few driving this case. And also the issue of not finding the requisite jurisdiction, that was what prompted the court to dismiss and to throw out this case. So I think that lawyers should do more by not falling into these technical landmines and pitfalls.
So it is good that there is a dissenting voice. And the dissenting voice's argument is that we cannot undo democracy because there's a possibility with all that is going on. And so the court verdict, like I said, has left more questions than answers. And that is why the PDP said that Supreme Court, you actually need to make more clarifications in order that we don't find ourselves in a difficult situation or a tight spot. Let's quickly take another story. Punch newspaper, petrol battlefield. Dangote importers locked in brutal price war. Dangote's decision to slash petrol prices has led to losses for fuel importers, depot owners, and retail marketers, even as the refinery itself admits it is bleeding financially. Punch reports that petrol importers are on the verge of losing as much as 102.48 billion naira monthly after the Dangote refinery reduced its price from 828 to 699 naira. The Dangote refinery is also projected to lose about 91 billion naira in a month due to this cut. Fuel marketers running filling stations across the country say they are counting heavy losses, as they would be forced to sell existing stocks purchased at higher prices below cost. To remain competitive, importers and private depot owners have been compelled to slash prices to align with Dangote's price cut. And so this has triggered a lot across the supply chain. And also you have that Dangote issue with NMPDRA. But on this price cut, it's really a huge fight that is going on here, But let me share one information. Okay. According to the data from the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Nigeria consumes an average of 50 million liters of petrol daily, translating to about 1.5 billion liters monthly. So the data showed that Dangote supplies 23.52 million liters per day, while the remaining is supplied by
the competition.
So there's a shortfall.
The importers. Yes. So there's a shortfall. Yes.
I think it's quite instructive to note that Section 32 of the Petroleum Industry Act empowers the Nigerian Mid and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority to promote competitiveness and encourage private sector participation, and also to identify and investigate abuse of dominant forces within the supply chain, within the market chain. So the role of Dangote now becomes worrisome. But now when you look at the mid and upstream regulator, it's the perception of the midstream and upstream regulator. I remember my days in literature class when we read The Incorruptible Judge. We were told that a regulator has to be impartial, neutral, and unbiased. So when a party is accusing that regulator of being partial in his judgment, that raises a lot of questions. But I thank God that the National Assembly is wading into this crisis. Right. Of course, I think it's a catch-22 situation. This is very important. Now, when we are talking about existing stock and the marketers are complaining of losses, but when the price goes higher, they don't think of the existing stock. They still sell on the prevailing rates.
Good point.
Well,
Good point.
I mean, the argument is that of short-term supply.
Indeed.
Stability versus long-term industrial policy. The regulator's defense is that import licenses are a safety valve to prevent fuel shortages and price spikes. Dangote doesn't see it that way. He believes that it's undermining the long-term policy of self-sufficiency of the Nigerian market. And Dangote is a fighter. He is a fighter. So we're going to see a long, drawn battle between these people.
Confrontational lately, which is something that we're not
even
really
as
used
the
to seeing.
refineries itself
we're
is
seeing
even
him
bleeding.
speak more. You're hearing him speak up more in a very competitive manner, and that's not something that we usually see. So it's very welcome and it's a good thing. But for the 699 naira per liter, I don't know if anyone has experienced this yet.
Okay,
but I am yet to.
I didn't check.
I am yet to experience that, but
I did not check. Let's take
how sustainable.
Let's take a story on the international front. We have DA minister under fire over Starlink. That's South Africa. So the ANC and the EFF are outraged over Malatsi's policy directive to effectively drop broad-based black economic empowerment to give Elon Musk a foot in the door. So some say blocking Elon Musk's SpaceX is problematic. He's been fighting with the South African government, and I think it's one of the reasons why Donald Trump intervened in South Africa, because he thinks that they're not giving Elon Musk what he wants.
Definitely the reason. That is definitely the reason. And I think, you know, we've been talking about this particular report for a very long time now, even from the beginning of the year. And basically the communications minister has issued a policy to telecoms regulators saying, listen, we need to reconsider these requirements. And now what are these requirements? The law requires 30% of any foreign operated company to be black economic empowerment owned. Now, if this goes through, that means Elon Musk will circumvent all the laws.
Well, they are saying that they're trying to consider him, you know, to, you know, sort of adjust the laws in his interest. And that is why some people are against it.
Absolutely. But my question is, how then does a minister override legislation? Where is that done?
That is why it is raising a lot of dust. And
a role that is meant to be for Parliament.
Yeah, so that BBBEE, let's explain what it is. So South Africa's legislative framework, the broad-based black economic empowerment is South Africa's legislative framework to promote economic transformation and inclusion, aiming to address historical inequalities by increasing black South Africans' participation in the economy.
Right.
And this is supposed to happen through ownership, management, skills development,
30% of ownership,
and enterprise support measured by a scorecard with elements like control, skills development, and a lot of that. So for some, this is a problem. For the majority of black South Africans, this is something that should be done because they were disadvantaged under apartheid.
Yes, and this is basically what it is. This is them pushing back and saying we're trying to take back, you know, our country in any way that we can when it comes to foreign investment. But I can't tell if we're going forward or back if the country is now being asked to look at this legislation again and say we should give Elon Musk a chance. He has been very negatively in the media in the past couple of months, and I think ever since his fallout with Donald Trump, we've seen a bit of silence from Elon Musk. He's even moved to the British politics of things. But I mean, I would hope that such a law would not fall through to allow Elon Musk to kind of override what is already, you know, what is already in policy.
Well, let's see what the parties decide finally. Those were your headlines for today.
Thanks, Dr. Constance and Bengashi.